In terms of bringing the values and behaviours aspect of the strategy to life, perhaps you could share with us, the values and behaviours that have been introduced at Acorns.
Absolutely. So I've been at Acorns just coming up to a year now. And as part of my sort of first year, we have undertaken quite a big exercise to understand how all of our people felt. We undertook something called a big cultural diagnostic, which sounds really technical. It effectively means we asked lots of people, lots of questions in different settings, focus groups, one-to-ones. We looked at exit interviews, feedback from people, did a big survey, collated all of that together to understand and get a really good picture of what's the temperature across the organisation, how are people feeling, what's some of the stuff they really love, what's some of the stuff that they really don't love, and therefore what do we need to be doing about it. And it came out from that one of the things was that whilst everybody recognised that we had values, they didn't really form any kind of I suppose focus in how they went about doing their day-to-day job. And if we think about values as being I suppose the linchpin to deliver your mission, which will deliver your vision, then it's really important that those values are connected to our people and that they're living and breathing them. So we undertook an exercise to engage with all of our people to refresh our values. And we've come out with 6 brand new values, which very much, I think, describe our organisation and the people who work within it. So they are caring, committed, trusted, collaborative, courageous, and curious. And some of those caring probably is a very obvious one, given what Acorns as a children's hospice organisation is here to do. Committed probably so as well. But courageous and curious are probably the two that are probably most unusual to people. But what that really means is for us to be able to be truly empathetic and stand in the shoes of anybody that we're interacting with, we first of all have to be inquisitive to understand what their situation is and to get a really good view of that. And what we're saying there is that we should seek to understand the why, explore, and therefore using that to explore different ways in which we can succeed, not just assuming that proven or old ways of doing things are the way that we can move forward. And for courageous, really what we're saying there is that we're going to be brave in challenging that status quo and embracing difference and change. And those two things link back really, I suppose, to what I said about creating an agile workforce that is constantly thinking about the possibility of things being developed differently, moving forward, and being able to be ready to change should it be necessary.
That's really interesting, Matt, and the way that you're able to give those examples of specific behaviours that support each of the values, I think helps people's understanding. But what happens with that now? Does that just sit as a nice document, print a few copies off and put it on the wall, or how do you use it in reality from this point?
Absolutely, it's a really good point, and the answer to that, Adam, is a firm no. Absolutely, there are posters on the wall. There's one behind me, which you can probably see, which has our values on it and our mission and our vision, which have been refreshed. But importantly, it's less about what we pop up on the wall, as pretty as it might look. It is absolutely about how do our people and how do we, as leaders, live and breathe those values day in, day out. So the values are further underpinned by a set of behaviours which are effectively categorised at different levels across the organisation. So we have 6 values. Underneath that, we have 6 behaviour sets, and they effectively go up sort of in intensity as you move up levels across the organisation. And what we're saying is that we, through our I suppose our review processes, our traditionally what people call appraisals, we are effectively targeting and making it an objective for our people to live and breathe these values and to be able to demonstrate the evidence of how they're doing so. Okay. So we're not only measuring the what, as in what people do, we're also measuring how they go about doing it. And as part of that, we've launched a value recognition scheme. which will seek to recognise those individuals who go above and beyond in living those values, which will have some prizes attached to that. Again, some of those linked to wellbeing, for example, an extra day's annual leave, an early finish or a late start, a free lunch, all sorts of different things that are available that are just little rewards to say, you know, we really value and recognise how you're living and breathing these values, and really sort of exemplifying them.
And does it influence your recruitment process in any way, Matt, as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So what we are going to do, so we're just moving on to this now, is actually we're redefining our end-to-end recruitment process, and so we will move to what we call using and creating behavioural-based assessments, where actually at the recruitment stage we'll be looking for candidates who clearly demonstrate through our questioning, clearly demonstrate an alignment to these values and behaviours, and if they do, they will be successful in moving forward. And if they don't, unfortunately, they'll be deemed as, you know, they're not a good match for us as an organisation.
Sure. That's been absolutely fascinating, Matt. So, you know, in summary, if you were to give some advice to somebody who was at the beginning of this journey, what would be your top tips for somebody that was designing their people strategy, you know, from that blank sheet of paper? You know, what actionable tips and hints have you learned and developed through your experiences that you think could be a massive help?
I think the very first one for me is one of our values, and that is be curious. Before you commit anything to paper, go out there and seek to understand what your challenges are. So first of all, understand as an organisation, what is our strategy saying, and where therefore are we saying we need to be in that 3-year period. From that, then come back and think about, okay, so what is it within our people that we're going to need them to be doing, saying, where are we going to get them from, where are some of those likely challenges, and you find to work with some assumptions, but I would say absolutely go and engage with managers, leaders, people on the front line, and actually understand from their point of view how they're feeling. And you can't underestimate the importance of how people feel and the impact that has on the success of, you know, a people strategy, and therefore the organisational success. I would also say alongside that, what you will identify is you could potentially put absolutely everything down to try and fix in a very short period of time, or create or be innovative with. You've got to kind of be a little bit brutal and say, okay, I'm going to be realistic about this. I've got 3 years and I'm going to do 5 things really well and make sure they're absolutely embedded. So therefore, that means I've got to define my 5 core elements, and the rest I'm going to have to say, well, for now, we're not going to focus on that. And therefore that might form part of your next strategy. And I think that is one of the biggest obstacles that I've certainly had in previous years, as before I came to Acorns, in developing a people strategy, is I put too much in it. I expected to achieve more than was ever going to be possible, because you kind of look at the world and go, yes, I want to fix everything. Think about the 5 things that are going to make the biggest difference, are going to deliver against that overall organisational strategy. Focus on doing them really well, spend time, land them really well, and make sure they're embedded.
That's fantastic, Matt. Thank you so much for your insight